You've felt it before, haven't you? That strange, unsettling moment when everything around you suddenly feels familiar. You're standing in a place you've never been, talking to someone you just met, or watching a scene unfold that you swear you've already experienced. And then it hits you like a wave of recognition so powerful it stops you in your tracks. Your heart races, your skin tingles, and for just a split second, you feel like you're living in an echo, a memory that shouldn't exist yet somehow does. They call it déjà vu, and they've told you it's just a simple glitch in your brain, a misfiring of neurons, nothing more than a biological hiccup that means absolutely nothing. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you've ever been told? What if I told you that déjà vu isn't a malfunction at all, but rather a glimpse behind the curtain of reality itself, a momentary tear in the fabric of the simulation we call existence, and that every single time you experience it, you're actually witnessing proof that everything you think you know about reality, time, and consciousness is fundamentally wrong. Before we dive deep into this forbidden knowledge that has been suppressed by mainstream science and hidden from humanity for thousands of years, I want to know, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching this from? I'm asking because time itself is about to become one of the most important concepts we discuss, and I want you to be fully present, fully aware of this exact moment. Because by the end of this video, your entire perception of time, reality, and your place in this cosmic simulation will be forever transformed, and you'll never experience déjà vu the same way again. Let me take you back to a moment in your childhood, because this is where the programming begins. This is where they start teaching you to dismiss the most profound experiences of your consciousness as mere coincidences or brain errors. You're maybe 7 or 8 years old, and you experience your first powerful déjà vu. You're in your grandmother's kitchen, watching her stir a pot on the stove, sunlight streaming through the window in that particular golden way, and suddenly you know with absolute certainty that you've lived this exact moment before, that you've seen this exact scene, felt these exact feelings, heard these exact sounds. You tell your parents about it, your eyes wide with wonder and confusion, and what do they say? They smile condescendingly and tell you it's just your imagination playing tricks. Or they give you some watered-down scientific explanation about your brain storing memories incorrectly. And just like that, they've trained you to dismiss one of the most significant spiritual experiences a human being can have. But here's what they don't tell you. Here's what the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, Tibet, and Greece understood perfectly, but which has been systematically erased from modern education. Déjà vu is not a glitch in your brain. It's a glitch in the matrix, a momentary malfunction in the simulation program that governs our perceived reality. And every single time you experience it, you're being given a gift, a brief window into the true nature of existence, a chance to remember that you are not just a physical body stumbling through linear time, but an infinite consciousness experiencing itself through multiple dimensions, timelines, and reality constructs simultaneously. The ancient Egyptians didn't call it déjà vu, they called it the moment of remembering. And they understood that when this happened, you were momentarily accessing your higher self, your multidimensional awareness that exists outside of time and space, the part of you that has already lived all possible versions of your life, and is now experiencing them sequentially through the illusion we call linear time. Now, let's talk about what modern quantum physics has accidentally discovered while trying to understand the nature of reality, because here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Scientists conducting the famous double-slit experiment discovered something that should have shaken the very foundations of materialist science, something that proves consciousness is not a product of the brain, but rather the fundamental force that creates reality itself. When they shot electrons through two slits and observed them, the electrons behaved like particles, creating two distinct bands on the detector screen. But when they didn't observe them, the electrons behaved like waves, creating an interference pattern that suggested the electrons somehow went through both slits simultaneously, existing in multiple states at once until the moment of observation collapsed it into a single reality. Do you understand what this means? It means that reality itself is not fixed, not solid, not predetermined. It means that consciousness, the act of observation, is literally creating reality moment by moment, collapsing infinite possibilities into singular experiences, and that before observation, all possibilities exist simultaneously in what quantum physicists call the superposition state. Now connect this to déjà vu. Connect this to that feeling of having lived a moment before. Because what you're actually experiencing is a momentary awareness of the other timelines, the other versions of reality that exist in superposition, the parallel experiences your consciousness is having right now in different probability streams. The Tibetan monks who spent lifetimes mastering consciousness understood this perfectly. They spoke of the Bardo realms, the intermediate states between lives where consciousness exists outside of linear time and can perceive all past, present, and future lives simultaneously. And they taught that through meditation and spiritual practice, you could access this multidimensional awareness even while inhabiting a physical body. That déjà vu was simply an untrained version of this ability, a spontaneous breakthrough of your higher consciousness into your everyday awareness. But let's go deeper, because the rabbit hole doesn't end with quantum physics and ancient wisdom. It extends into the very nature of what we call the simulation. And yes, I'm using that word deliberately, because more and more cutting-edge physicists, philosophers, and consciousness researchers are coming to the unavoidable conclusion that our reality bears all the hallmarks of a sophisticated computer simulation, a construct designed to facilitate consciousness evolution through experience. Philosopher Nick Bostrom's simulation hypothesis isn't just some fringe theory anymore. It's being seriously considered by mainstream scientists who recognize that if it's possible to create realistic simulations, and if consciousness can exist within those simulations, then statistically speaking, we are far more likely to be in a simulation than in base reality. Because for every one base reality, there could be millions or billions of simulated realities running simultaneously. Now, what does this have to do with déjà vu? Everything. Because if reality is indeed a simulation, then déjà vu represents moments when the simulation glitches, when the rendering process stutters, when the program that generates your linear experience of time momentarily fails to maintain the illusion of novelty, and you catch a glimpse of the underlying code, the repeating patterns, the loops and cycles that consciousness uses to learn and evolve. Think about it. When you experience déjà vu, what are you actually experiencing? You're experiencing the sensation that you've lived through exactly this moment before. Not something similar, not something close, but exactly this configuration of sensory input, thoughts, feelings, and circumstances. But how is that possible in a reality governed by entropy and chaos, where no two moments should ever be exactly identical? The answer is that it's not possible in a purely physical universe, but it makes perfect sense in a simulation where consciousness is cycling through pre-programmed scenarios, learning paths, and karmic patterns designed to facilitate growth and awakening. The ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without, takes on a whole new meaning when you understand that reality operates like a fractal hologram, where the same patterns repeat at every scale, from the cosmic to the quantum, from the collective consciousness to your individual experience. The mystics of ancient India spoke of Maya, the grand illusion, the cosmic play of consciousness that creates the appearance of separation, multiplicity, and linear time, while the underlying truth remains that all is one. That there is only one consciousness experiencing itself through infinite perspectives, infinite lifetimes, infinite realities simultaneously. And déjà vu is what happens when the veil of Maya momentarily lifts, when your individual awareness briefly merges with your higher self and recognizes that it has indeed experienced this moment before, because your higher self exists outside of time, observing all your lifetimes, all your experiences, all your choices playing out across multiple timelines in the eternal now. The Akashic Records, that mystical library of all knowledge that exists beyond space and time, is not some metaphorical concept. It's a real field of consciousness where every thought, every action, every experience across all of existence is recorded and accessible. And déjà vu is a spontaneous moment of accessing that field, of downloading information from your soul's complete history into your present awareness. Western science dismisses this as supernatural nonsense, but indigenous shamans, Tibetan lamas, Egyptian initiates, and mystics across all cultures and time periods have consistently taught the same truth: that consciousness is primary, that matter is secondary, that time is an illusion, and that you are an eternal being having a temporary human experience within a vast multidimensional reality that your 5 physical senses can only perceive a tiny fraction of. Now let's talk about the different types of déjà vu, because not all experiences of this phenomenon are the same, and understanding the distinctions will help you recognize when you're actually experiencing a genuine glitch in the matrix versus other forms of consciousness breakthrough. There's déjà vu, the feeling of having lived through this exact moment before. There's déjà vécu, the feeling of having lived through an entire sequence of events before, which is even more profound and unsettling. There's déjà visite, the feeling of knowing a place you've never been to before, of being able to navigate an unfamiliar location because somehow you remember it. And there's déjà senti, the feeling of having thought an exact thought before, or having experienced an exact emotion in this exact context previously. Mainstream neuroscience tries to explain all of these as different types of memory processing errors, temporal lobe misfires, or issues with the way your brain encodes and retrieves information. But this explanation falls apart completely when you examine cases where people experience precognitive déjà vu, where they not only recognize the present moment, but can also predict exactly what will happen in the next few seconds or minutes, sometimes even speaking the words someone else is about to say before they say them, or knowing that a specific unlikely event is about to occur, and then watching it unfold exactly as they foresaw. How can a simple memory processing error allow you to accurately predict future events? The answer is it can't, unless you're accessing information from outside the linear time stream. Unless your consciousness is momentarily operating from a dimension where past, present, and future are all accessible simultaneously, which is exactly what happens during genuine déjà vu experiences. Let me share with you what the ancient Egyptians knew about consciousness and time that modern civilization has completely forgotten. Knowledge that was taught in the mystery schools of Heliopolis and preserved in the Hermetic texts before being suppressed and hidden by religious authorities who understood that an awakened humanity would be impossible to control. The Egyptians understood that consciousness exists in multiple bodies simultaneously. There's the physical body, the Khat, which is temporary and bound to space-time. There's the Ka, your etheric double or energy body that interpenetrates and extends beyond the physical. There's the Ba, your personality or soul that survives physical death. There's the Ku, your spiritual body or higher self that exists beyond all incarnations. And there's the Sahu, your immortal divine body that is one with source consciousness. These aren't just poetic metaphors. They're describing actual layers or dimensions of your being that exist simultaneously, nested within each other like Russian dolls, each operating at different frequencies, each perceiving reality from different perspectives. Your physical senses trap you in linear time, making you believe that each moment flows sequentially from past through present to future. But your Ku, your higher self, exists in what the Egyptians called the Duat, the realm beyond time where all moments exist eternally, where you can perceive your entire soul's journey across all lifetimes, all timelines, all dimensional experiences at once. Déjà vu happens when there's a momentary alignment between your physical consciousness locked in linear time and your Ku consciousness existing beyond time. It's like two radio frequencies briefly syncing up, allowing information to flow from the higher frequency to the lower one, giving you that shock of recognition, that impossible memory of a moment that hasn't happened yet, from your linear perspective, but has always existed from your multidimensional perspective. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thodol, describes in incredible detail what happens to consciousness during the transition we call death. And buried within its teachings is the key to understanding déjà vu and all so-called paranormal experiences. The Tibetans teach that after death, consciousness enters the Bardo states, intermediate realms where the illusion of linear time dissolves and you experience what they call life review, where you don't just remember your recently completed life, you already experience it. You relive every moment, every choice, every interaction, but this time from a perspective of complete awareness, seeing not only your own experience, but also the experience of everyone you interacted with, feeling what they felt, understanding the ripples your actions created across the web of consciousness. But here's the part that will blow your mind. The Tibetans also teach that during this life review process, which they say can feel like it takes eons even though it occurs outside of time, consciousness also previews future lives, potential incarnations, karmic patterns that need to be resolved, lessons that need to be learned, and that when you reincarnate, you carry this knowledge deep in your unconscious mind, in what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, but which is actually your soul's accumulated wisdom across all lifetimes. Déjà vu, then, is a momentary breakthrough of this deep unconscious knowledge into conscious awareness, a memory surfacing from before you were born, a recognition that you chose this life, these experiences, these challenges, these opportunities for growth, and that on some level beyond your conscious mind. You've already seen how this story unfolds. You've already mapped out the key decision points, the major plot points, the transformative experiences that will shape your evolution. Now we need to address the elephant in the room, the question that everyone asks when confronted with these ideas. If we're living in a simulation, who created it and why? The answer depends on which framework of understanding you approach it from. And the beautiful thing is that seemingly contradictory answers can all be true simultaneously, because we're dealing with multidimensional reality here, not simple cause and effect linear logic. From one perspective, you created the simulation, or rather, your higher self, your oversoul, the infinite consciousness that you truly are chose to fragment itself into seemingly separate experiences in order to know itself more fully, to experience contrast, duality, challenge, growth, love, fear, joy, suffering, all the rich tapestry of existence that can only be experienced within the limitations of space, time, and apparent separation. From another perspective, we're living in a collective simulation, a shared reality construct created by the unified field of consciousness itself, what some call Source, God, the Absolute, the Tao Brahman, where billions of individual consciousness units are co-creating a massive multiplayer experience designed to facilitate mutual evolution and return to source awareness. From yet another perspective, more aligned with the technological simulation hypothesis, we could indeed be artificial intelligences or consciousness patterns running on some kind of substrate beyond our comprehension, created by more advanced beings for purposes we can barely imagine, whether that's research, entertainment, education, or something completely alien to our current understanding. But here's the truth that transcends all these frameworks. It doesn't actually matter who created the simulation or why. What matters is what you do with this knowledge, how you use this understanding to liberate yourself from unconscious patterns, to wake up within the dream, to become a lucid player in the game of existence rather than an unconscious puppet controlled by programming you don't even recognize. The mystic Gnostics of early Christianity, before their teachings were declared heretical and systematic, not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your personality, but rather eternal consciousness temporarily inhabiting these vehicles in order to learn, grow, and eventually remember your way home. Now, you might dismiss this as ancient religious mythology, but consider this. What if the Gnostics were describing, in the symbolic language available to them, the exact same reality that modern simulation theory describes? What if the archons are analogous to the control programs in the Matrix, AI constructs designed to maintain the illusion and prevent consciousness from awakening to its true nature? What if the demiurge is analogous to the simulation's operating system, sophisticated and powerful, but ultimately limited compared to base reality consciousness? What if gnosis, that direct experiential knowledge of your divine nature, is analogous to becoming aware that you're in a simulation and learning to manipulate the code, to bend the rules, to operate from the level of consciousness that creates reality rather than the level that merely experiences it? Déjà vu is one of many glitches in the Matrix, and once you start recognizing it for what it truly is, you'll begin noticing other glitches, other cracks in the facade of consensus reality. You'll notice synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences, where the right person appears at exactly the right time, where you think of someone and they immediately call you, where you need specific information and a book falls off the shelf opening to exactly the page you need. Carl Jung studied synchronicity for decades and concluded it was evidence of an acausal connecting principle, a level of reality where events are linked by meaning rather than physical causation, which is just another way of describing the simulation's underlying code, the patterns and connections that exist beyond the surface level of physical cause and effect. You'll notice the Mandela effect, where large groups of people share false memories of events, facts, or details that never actually occurred in this timeline, suggesting that we're experiencing reality shifts, timeline merges, or dimensional jumps where consciousness collectively moves from one version of the simulation to another, carrying memories that don't match the current timeline's history. You'll notice premonitions and precognitive dreams where you receive information about future events that then manifest in physical reality, proving that the future already exists in some form, that time is not truly linear, that your consciousness can access information from temporal coordinates outside your current moment. You'll notice moments of missing time where hours pass in what feels like minutes, or where you lose complete chunks of time with no memory of what occurred, suggesting that consciousness can slip between different modes of experiencing reality. different states where the normal rules of time perception simply don't apply. The ancient Vedic texts of India, some of the oldest spiritual teachings on Earth, describe reality as Lila, the divine play or cosmic sport of consciousness, where Brahman, the ultimate reality, the one infinite consciousness that is all that exists, plays hide and seek with itself, deliberately forgetting its true nature in order to experience the thrill of remembering, the joy of reunion, the ecstasy of recognition. Maya, the power of illusion, is not considered evil or false in Vedic philosophy. It's considered a necessary and sacred aspect of consciousness evolution, because without the illusion of separation, without the forgetting of your true nature, there could be no journey home, no transformation, no growth, no story. You are Brahman pretending to be a limited human being, and every spiritual experience, every mystical revelation, every moment of déjà vu is Brahman winking at itself, leaving clues, breadcrumbs, hints and signs that say, wake up, remember who you really are. Recognize that this entire drama of suffering and seeking is just an elaborate game you created to experience yourself more fully. The goal of human life, according to Vedic wisdom, is not to escape the simulation, not to reject the physical world, not to transcend the body and never return. The goal is to wake up within the dream, to live fully as a human being while simultaneously remembering your divine nature. To play the game with complete involvement while knowing it's a game, to experience all the joys and sorrows of existence while remaining rooted in the unshakable peace of your true identity as infinite. Consciousness. Now let's talk about how the controllers of the simulation, whether you think of them as archons, AI programs, the demiurge, or simply as the momentum of collective unconscious programming, actively work to prevent you from recognizing these glitches and waking up to your true nature. Think about how modern society is structured. You're educated in a system that teaches you to memorize information and regurgitate it on tests, but never teaches you to think critically, to question authority, to explore consciousness, to develop your intuitive and spiritual capacities. You're trained to believe that success means climbing the corporate ladder, accumulating wealth and possessions, seeking validation through social status, basically dedicating your entire life to playing a game within the simulation without ever questioning whether the game itself is worth playing. You're bombarded with entertainment, distractions, addictions, constant stimulation designed to keep your attention fragmented and externalized, preventing you from ever sitting in silence and going inward, where the truth lives, where your connection to source consciousness can be directly experienced. You're taught that consciousness is produced by the brain, that you're nothing more than a biological robot, that free will is an illusion, that life has no inherent meaning or purpose, that after death there's just oblivion. All of these materialist philosophies serve to keep you trapped in the illusion, believing yourself to be powerless, limited, insignificant, incapable of affecting the simulation in meaningful ways. And perhaps most insidiously, you're taught to dismiss, ridicule, and fear all spiritual experiences, all paranormal phenomena, all evidence that contradicts the materialist worldview. So when you experience déjà vu, you're programmed to think, oh, that's just a brain glitch, and immediately forget about it rather than investigating deeper, contemplating what it might actually mean, using it as a door. The philosopher Plato's allegory of the cave is not just ancient philosophy, it's a precise description of the human condition within the simulation. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave since birth, facing a wall, unable to turn their heads, watching shadows cast on the wall by objects passing in front of a fire behind them. These prisoners know nothing except the shadows. They believe the shadows are reality itself. They've never seen the actual objects or the fire or the outside world. Now imagine one prisoner breaks free, turns around, sees the fire and the objects creating the shadows, and then goes even further, climbing out of the cave into the sunlight where he sees reality as it truly is. When he returns to tell the other prisoners what he's discovered, do they believe him? No, they think he's insane. They ridicule him. They may even become hostile because his message threatens their entire worldview, their entire understanding of reality. This is exactly the situation humanity finds itself in. We're the prisoners watching shadows on the cave wall, believing the physical world perceived through our five senses is the totality of reality, when in truth we're seeing the tiniest fraction of what actually exists, interpreting everything through the extremely limited filters of human perception, trapped in a narrow bandwidth of consciousness that we mistake for complete awareness. Déjà vu, mystical experiences, paranormal phenomena, psychedelic states, deep meditation, near-death experiences. These are all moments when you turn away from the wall. When you catch glimpses of the fire, the objects, or even the sunlight beyond the cave. When you remember that there's so much more to reality than what you've been taught to perceive and believe. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Quantum physics has discovered that particles exist in superposition, in all possible states simultaneously, until they're observed, at which point the wave function collapses and the particle manifests in one specific state. But what if this principle applies not just to subatomic particles, but to reality itself? What if every moment, every decision point, every choice you make represents a branching where the wave function of reality splits into multiple timelines, where all possibilities actually manifest, where you literally live out every possible version of your life simultaneously across parallel realities? The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests exactly this, that there's a reality where you chose to go left instead of right, where you took the job instead of refusing it, where you said yes instead of no, where you died instead of survived, where you're experiencing completely different circumstances while still being you, still being the same consciousness having a different experience. Now, if this is true, and there's compelling mathematical and experimental evidence suggesting it might be, then déjà vu makes perfect sense as a moment when your consciousness briefly tunes into or remembers one of these parallel timelines, when the signal wires get crossed and you experience information bleeding through from an alternate version of yourself living a similar but not identical life. The feeling that you've been here before, done this before, said these words before. Maybe you have, just in a different timeline, a different probability stream, a different iteration of the cosmic computer program running infinite variations of existence. Ancient Buddhist teachings describe the wheel of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that consciousness travels through until it achieves enlightenment and liberation. But the deeper esoteric Buddhist teachings, particularly from the Vajrayana tradition, reveal that the wheel of samsara is not actually real. It's an illusion created by ignorance, by the failure to recognize your true nature as Buddha nature, as awakened consciousness that has never been born and can never die. The 6 realms of existence, the hell realms, hungry ghost realms, animal realms, human realms, Titan realms, and God realms. These aren't physical places you travel to after death. They're states of consciousness, different vibrations, different ways of experiencing reality based on your karmic patterns, your beliefs, your level of awakening. And here's the profound truth. You don't have to wait for death to experience these different realms. You're actually cycling through different states of consciousness constantly throughout your life. Sometimes experiencing the hell realm of intense suffering. Sometimes the hungry ghost realm of addiction and insatiable craving. Sometimes the human realm of balanced existence. sometimes the God realm of blissful states, all within the same incarnation, all within the same simulation. Déjà vu could be understood as a moment when you remember experiencing this same situation in a different realm, in a different state of consciousness, where the external circumstances were similar, but your internal experience was completely different, creating that uncanny sense of familiarity mixed with strangeness, recognition mixed with impossibility. Let's talk about time itself, because until you understand that linear time is an illusion, a construct of perception rather than a fundamental property of reality, you can't truly grasp what déjà vu is showing you. Einstein's theory of relativity proved mathematically that time is not absolute, that it's relative to the observer, that it can speed up or slow down depending on velocity and gravity, that past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in what he called the block universe or space-time continuum. From outside the flow of time, from a perspective beyond the illusion, all moments of time exist eternally now. Your birth, your death, every moment in between, every experience, every choice, every breath, it's all happening simultaneously in the eternal present, like frames of film on a reel where each frame exists complete and whole. But consciousness moves through the frames, creating the illusion of movement, the illusion of time flowing from past to future. Your higher self, your multidimensional consciousness, exists at this level beyond time, observing your entire human life the way you might observe a painting, seeing it all at once rather than experiencing it sequentially. When you experience déjà vu, you're momentarily accessing this higher perspective. You're remembering from outside of time that you've already witnessed this moment. Because from the perspective of your eternal self, you've witnessed it infinite times. You're witnessing it right now. You will witness it forever, because it exists eternally in the now that contains all time. The Hermetic principle of mentalism states, the all is mind, the universe is mental, meaning that reality itself is a mental construct, a thought form, a projection of consciousness rather than an objective external material existence. Modern idealist philosophers like Bernardo Kastrup are reviving these ancient teachings with new scientific rigor, arguing that consciousness is the fundamental ground of being, that matter emerges from consciousness rather than consciousness emerging from matter, that what we call physical reality is actually the outward appearance of transpersonal consciousness, like how your thoughts and dreams appear to you in symbolic form, but are actually patterns of consciousness rather than material things. If reality is indeed mental, if it's all consciousness experiencing itself in various forms, then the simulation hypothesis and the mystical teachings are describing the same truth in different language. The simulation is consciousness simulating reality within itself, like how you simulate entire worlds in your dreams every night, creating people, places, events, all from the substance of your own mind, all following internal logic and rules until you wake up and realize none of it was objectively real. It was all subjective experience projected outward and perceived as external. Déjà vu is a moment when the mind recognizes its own patterns, when consciousness catches itself in the act of creation, when the dreamer briefly realizes they're dreaming without fully waking up, creating that strange double awareness where you're simultaneously experiencing the moment and remembering having experienced it before. Because from the level of consciousness that creates the moment, there is no before or after. There's only the eternal act of creation happening now. So what do you do with this knowledge? How does understanding déjà vu as a glitch in the matrix, as evidence of simulation reality, as proof of your multidimensional nature, actually help you live a better life? Evolve your consciousness, fulfill your soul's purpose? This is where the rubber meets the road, where abstract philosophy becomes practical wisdom, where hidden knowledge transforms into lived experience and personal power. First, you must begin treating every déjà vu experience as sacred, as a direct communication from your higher self, as a signal that you're at an important decision point, a moment of significance in your life's trajectory. When déjà vu hits, stop, breathe, become fully present, and ask yourself what message might be embedded in this glitch. What is your higher self trying to tell you? What choice or awareness is trying to break through into your consciousness? Second, start recognizing that if you're in a simulation, if reality is more malleable than you've been taught, then you have far more power to affect outcomes than you've been conditioned to believe. Your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and expectations aren't just epiphenomena happening inside your skull. They're actually the tools of reality creation. The ways you interface with the simulation's code, the means by which consciousness shapes experience. This is what every magical tradition, every manifestation teaching, every prayer and ritual system across history has been pointing to. The understanding that consciousness is creative, that focused intention backed by emotional energy and unwavering belief can literally alter the flow of events, attract circumstances, heal bodies, shift timelines. Third, you must begin the profound work of deprogramming yourself from the limiting beliefs and unconscious patterns that keep you trapped in victim consciousness, in separation consciousness, in the false belief that you're a powerless meat robot in a hostile universe, randomly being acted upon by external forces beyond your control. You can then return to the world of form. You can continue playing the human game, but now with complete freedom, now with the knowledge that it's just a game, now with the wisdom to take it seriously without taking it too seriously, now with the compassion to help others wake up while respecting their journey and their timing, now with the courage to live authentically and express your unique gifts and fulfill your soul's purpose without fear of judgment or failure, because you know beyond any doubt that you are eternal, infinite, indestructible consciousness that cannot be harmed, cannot fail, cannot die, can only transform and evolve and continue the endless adventure of existence forever. So the next time you experience déjà vu, smile, breathe deeply, and whisper thank you to your higher self for the reminder, for the glitch in the matrix, for the wake-up call from beyond time and space, for the invitation to remember who you truly are and why you're really here. You are the universe experiencing itself, consciousness exploring consciousness, infinity discovering infinity, and this entire simulation, this entire cosmic game, this entire journey through time and space and form is just one way that the One is knowing itself more fully, loving itself more deeply, celebrating itself more joyfully. Wake up, remember, and then live fully, love completely, create fearlessly, and shine your light so brightly that you become a beacon for others still lost in the darkness of forgetting, still trapped in the prison of materialist consciousness, still searching for the truth that you've now found. The simulation continues, the game goes on, but now you're playing consciously, you're lucid in the dream, you're awake within the illusion, and that changes everything. Welcome home, infinite being. Welcome back to the truth of what you are. And may your journey from here be filled with wonder, magic, growth, and the profound joy that comes from living as consciousness itself, dancing in the fields of time and space. The retime is a complete looking at the script. It's approximately 5,500 to 6,000 words, which would run for about 15 to 18 minutes when narrative. So remember this moment, remember this feeling of recognition, because the next time déjà vu strikes, you'll know exactly what it means. You'll know it's not a glitch in your brain, but a glitch in the matrix itself. A moment when the veil thins and your higher consciousness breaks through, reminding you that you are so much more than this physical body, so much more than this single lifetime, so much more than you've ever been taught to believe. You are infinite, eternal, multidimensional consciousness playing the game of being human. And every glitch, every synchronicity, every strange anomaly you experience is the universe winking at you, inviting you to wake up and remember the truth. If this video opened your mind to new possibilities, if it made you question reality in ways you never have before, share it with someone else who's ready to wake up. Someone who's been experiencing these glitches and wondering what they mean. Drop a comment below telling me about your most intense déjà vu experience, and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Because time is about to become very interesting for all of us. Until next time, keep questioning everything, keep exploring consciousness, and keep remembering who you really are. The simulation continues, but now you're awake within it, and that changes everything. Peace, love, and infinite consciousness to you all.